The call came on a bright afternoon when the sun was shining so beautifully that it almost felt cruel. Arun Hale stood in the middle of his father's empty house, staring at the old wooden chair by the window. The chair was still there. The glasses were still on the table. The half-finished crossword puzzle still waited beside a cold cup of tea. Everything remained exactly where his father had left it the morning he died. Everything except the man himself. Arun picked up the crossword and noticed something folded inside. His father's handwriting covered the paper. His hands trembled as he unfolded it. The first line hit him like a storm. If you are reading this, son, I am gone. And if I know you, you are standing alone pretending you don't need anyone. But you do. What happened after that letter changed Arun's life forever. Before we continue, if you believe kindness can heal broken hearts and that everyone deserves a second chance at happiness, please take a moment to like this video, comment where you're watching from, share this story with someone you care about, and subscribe to the channel Wisdom Story House for more emotional and inspiring stories. Arun was 38 years old, successful by every standard the world respected. He owned a growing architecture company, drove an expensive car, and lived in a beautiful home overlooking the river. Yet every evening he returned to silence. No laughter greeted him. No one asked how his day had gone. No warm light waited in the window. The house was elegant but lifeless, much like the man who lived inside it. Years earlier, Arun had been engaged to a woman named Celeste. They had dreamed of a future together. But just 3 months before their wedding, she left him for someone else. The betrayal shattered something deep inside him. He buried himself in work and convinced himself that love was an unnecessary risk. While friends built families and created memories, Arun built walls around his heart. Only one person continued challenging those walls. His father. Elias Hale was a retired schoolteacher with kind eyes and endless patience. Every Sunday he invited Arun for lunch. Every Sunday he reminded him that life was not meant to be lived alone. Arun always smiled politely and changed the subject. Deep down he believed his father simply didn't understand how much pain one heartbreak could cause. Then Elias became sick. The diagnosis arrived quietly but brutally. A rare illness gave him less than a year to live. Arun suddenly found himself spending evenings in hospital rooms instead of office meetings. He watched the strongest man he knew grow weaker month by month. Yet even during those difficult days, Elias worried less about himself than about his son. One evening, while sunlight painted the hospital walls gold, Elias reached for Arun's hand. He told him that money could buy comfort but not companionship. Success could earn admiration but not love. And when life storms arrived, achievements could not hold your hand through the darkness. Arun laughed it off, unwilling to confront the truth hidden in those words. 3 months later, Elias was gone. Now, standing alone in the old house, Arun continued reading the letter. His father had written about memories from Arun's childhood. He described teaching him to ride a bicycle, helping with school projects, and watching him become a man. Then came a final request. There is someone I want you to meet. Her name is Mara Whitmore. She volunteers at the community library where I spent my afternoons. She lost her husband years ago and carries sadness the way you carry yours. If life allows it, meet her. Not because I want you to marry her. Meet her because I want you to stop hiding from the possibility of happiness. Arun folded the letter and sighed. It sounded like another one of his father's impossible missions. For weeks he ignored it. But grief has a strange way of making people do things they never expected. One Saturday morning he found himself standing outside the small community library. The building looked ordinary. Children laughed near the entrance. Birds sang in nearby trees. Life moved forward despite loss. Inside, he noticed a woman organizing books. She wasn't glamorous. She wasn't trying to impress anyone. Her chestnut hair was loosely tied back, and she wore simple clothes. Yet there was something quietly beautiful about her presence. She looked up. Their eyes met. Then she smiled gently. For a moment, Arun felt strangely uncomfortable. Not because of her. Because her smile reminded him of everything he had spent years avoiding. Mara recognized his surname immediately. Elias had spoken about his son often. They sat together in a corner of the library drinking coffee from paper cups. At first the conversation felt awkward. Then surprisingly easy. She shared stories about Elias helping children with reading lessons. Arun learned things about his father he had never known. Apparently the old man spent countless afternoons encouraging struggling students and secretly paying for books families couldn't afford. Hours passed. When Arun finally left, he realized something unusual. It was the first genuinely enjoyable conversation he had experienced in years. Still, he convinced himself it meant nothing. Days became weeks. Weeks became months. Sometimes he visited the library. Sometimes Mara called him. Sometimes they simply walked through the city park discussing books, memories, and life. Slowly, without realizing it, Arun began looking forward to those meetings. Yet fear remained. Every growing feeling triggered old wounds. Every moment of happiness reminded him how devastating loss could be. One evening rain poured heavily across the city. Arun sat in his car outside the library waiting for the storm to ease. Through the window he saw Mara helping an elderly visitor carry books to her vehicle. The scene was simple. But something inside him shifted. Mara was kind in ways that demanded no recognition. She cared because caring came naturally. And suddenly he understood why his father had wanted him to meet her. Not because she would fix him. But because she showed him another way to live. A way built on connection instead of protection. Unfortunately, life rarely changes without resistance. A few weeks later, Mara stopped answering calls. Messages went unread. Visits to the library revealed she was taking time away. Concern slowly turned into worry. Finally Arun learned the truth. Mara's younger brother had suffered a severe accident in another state. She had rushed to care for him. The situation was serious. For the first time in years, Arun felt genuine fear for someone else's well-being. Without hesitation he drove several hours to the hospital. When he found her sitting alone in a waiting room, exhaustion filled her face. She looked surprised to see him. Then grateful. Neither spoke immediately. Sometimes presence matters more than words. For 3 days Arun remained there helping however he could. He brought meals. Handled paperwork. Sat beside her through endless hours of uncertainty. Eventually her brother stabilized and began recovering. One quiet evening, after the crisis had passed, they sat outside beneath a fading sunset. The air smelled of fresh rain. The world felt fragile and beautiful at the same time. Mara looked at him with tears shining in her eyes. Then she whispered something that changed everything. My father used to tell me that grief can become a prison if we're not careful. Your father told me something similar about you. A few months before he died, he sat right where you're sitting now. He smiled and said, my son thinks he doesn't need anyone, but one day he'll realize love isn't weakness. Arun felt emotion rising in his chest. Years of loneliness. Years of regret. Years of fear. All suddenly standing before him. Then Mara spoke the words he would never forget. My father said you needed a wife. She laughed softly through her tears. And honestly, your father said it too. Arun stared toward the horizon where the sun melted into gold. For a long moment he said nothing. Then he remembered his empty house. The silent dinners. The unopened dreams. The chair beside the window. The letter folded carefully in his desk drawer. Most of all, he remembered the man who had loved him enough to keep believing in his future even when he had stopped believing himself. Arun turned toward Mara. His voice cracked. He was right. The months that followed were not magical because life suddenly became perfect. They were beautiful because two wounded people chose courage over fear. They learned each other's habits, shared responsibilities, supported one another through difficult days. There were disagreements, challenges, and moments of doubt. But there was also laughter, partnership, hope, and the kind of quiet love that grows stronger with time. 1 year later, they married in a small daytime ceremony beneath a canopy of flowering trees. Children from the library carried flowers down the aisle. Friends gathered close. The sky was brilliantly blue. On the front row sat an empty chair. Resting on it was a framed photograph of Elias Hale smiling warmly. During the ceremony, Arun found himself looking at that picture more than once. Not because he was sad. Because he wished he could say thank you. Thank you for refusing to give up on me. Thank you for seeing the life I couldn't see. Thank you for reminding me that strength isn't found in standing alone. Years passed. The library expanded. Their family grew. The once silent house filled with laughter, conversations, and the beautiful chaos of everyday life. Sometimes, late in the afternoon, Arun would sit by the same window where his father's chair once stood. Sunlight would stream across the room exactly as it had years ago. And every time he heard Mara laughing in another room, every time he watched their children run through the house, every time he felt grateful for ordinary moments, he understood something profound. The greatest gifts are not always given directly. Sometimes they arrive through people who love us enough to see what we cannot. And sometimes the wisdom we resist the longest becomes the truth that saves us. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like the video, share it with someone who may need hope today, comment your thoughts below, and subscribe to Wisdom Story House so more people can discover stories that inspire kindness, healing, and second chances. Special request, comment, "He was right," if you believe love can find us even after our darkest seasons. Because somewhere today, someone is standing in an empty room believing they are better off alone. Someone is carrying old heartbreaks like heavy chains. Someone is convinced happiness belongs to other people. But life has a remarkable way of surprising us. The right person may not erase our pain. They may not fix every broken piece. Yet they can remind us that even after loss, disappointment, and years of loneliness, the human heart still has room to bloom again. And sometimes, all it takes is one brave step toward another person. One conversation. One act of kindness. One chance. Just as a father once believed for his son. And just as a whisper became the beginning of a brand new life. "My father said you needed a wife," she whispered. And with tears in his eyes and gratitude in his heart, he finally answered the truth he had spent years running from. He was right. The end.